So now we're at part 3. What is the soul? Ancestral soul. The soul is an interesting concept. No one has any hardcore proof one way or another about it, yet we have ideas and experiences that lead to more ideas. From a scientific standpoint, we know several things that give us clues. First, energy is what runs our whole entire body. From electrical impulses in the brain, the nervous system, and the heart to keep the body alive and moving, to the energy we consume and use to do all that moving. Energy never dies or disappears, it only changes form. So, with that, we can assume the energy that is our conscious unconscious is our soul, an energy that is using this vessel to experience the physical world. My personal experience from being a CCRN and sitting with those who are dying, there is a definite shift in the movement when they pass. There is a physical light or brightness in the eyes that disappears in that moment. There is a shift in the energy in the room. Like you feel them leaving, their body temperature immediately starts changing. There is much we do not know. But then again, there is much we do know from a scientific standpoint. From a spiritual standpoint, born from personal experiences and beliefs, we know a lot more, yet can't prove them in concrete terms of science. Does this make them any less true? I personally say no, because experience, after all, is how our world and understanding of it is made. Over the history of humanity, there have been many theories as to what the soul is, what makes it up, and what happens to it when you die. I'm not going to cover any of that because it's too broad. I am, however, going to cover my own beliefs, my personal experiences, what my guides, my deities, and ancestors have said on the subject, and a northern perspective of the soul, for it's the closest to putting my beliefs into structure. So, what is said from this point on is my own perspective. You can decide for yourself what makes sense to you. I believe the soul has 2 main parts. First, your conscious soul. This is the part that is all you. Right now, in this body, it controls the conscious mind, functions of the brain and body, including how we experience, process, and perceive the world. It's your thoughts. When you die, I believe this is the part that becomes your ghost. I believe ghosts are like echoes. They only have the information and understanding that they personally gained and experienced in this life. This is not the eternal soul that lives on, but more like a hologram of who you were in this particular lifespan. Yeah, that's simplifying it, but it gives you some context. Second, your ancestral soul. This, I believe, controls the subconscious, emotions, and the spiritual self. It is made up of certain ancestors and passed to another when they die. All the knowledge, experiences, skills we develop, and so forth are blended into this larger ancestral soul throughout our lives and can be accessed by those who receive the soul when we die. We carry all their history, their stories, their skills they developed, knowledge they acquired, and so forth from their life. Each life is connected, merged, and blended into this ancestral soul and passed on. Thus, this aspect is the eternal part of our soul. Although it resides in our unconscious space, we can connect and work with it like any other spirit or energy. We also get things automatically from this ancestral soul, such as natural talents, instincts, personal traits, and so forth. To note here, I think there is also the possibility of some part of your soul transcending this physical plane, meaning that when you die, your soul may have the option to not be stuck in this place and time, but to move on to whatever other adventures lie waiting for us beyond this physical realm or human one. That one gets a little sticky and probably is in the unconscious soul, the first one, but that's deeper than we're going to go today. So back on to ancestral soul. There is one other part, but it is so much a part of your soul. It's not so much part of your soul, but more like attached to it. It goes by many names and many traditions, but I call it your primary guide. It is possible that this guide is a part of the ancestral soul, or perhaps has just been bound to it over lifetimes. For me, the distinction really doesn't matter. It does the job, so whether it's a part of me directly or bound to me in some other way really makes no difference to me. I believe this primary guide is with us from birth and travels with the ancestral soul. For me, that primary guide is the Morrigan. Even though I did not have a name for her most of my life, her energy was there, her influence was there, and even the fields of work I did were connected to her. Think of your primary as your ultimate guardian or teacher. They're the ones who walk with us from birth to death, whether you acknowledge them or not on a conscious level. For me, she directs all the other deities and spirits I connect to, all for lessons and skills I need to develop for my own growth. My personal experiences with ancestors, specifically Mary MacLane, Achan, Kari, have helped me to understand not just the ancestral soul, but how to access and use it. I'm still on the surface and learning, but I'm learning. It's interesting because it's similar to conversations and working with other entities with a lot more depth and clear communication versus clips of what you may get from one not connected directly to you. They are all a part of us. By accessing that part, we are able to not just gain knowledge from them, but also access their abilities that reside in us. We are able to learn directly from them and discover truths of the past from their perspective. Some call this accessing your higher self, which isn't wrong because they are a part of you and yourself in this life. These aspects of the self, our ancestors that make up our ancestral soul and our primary guide, are our biggest helpers, guardians, teachers, our cheering section. They are directly connected and invested in our success. Our success and growth is also theirs and feeds them as well as it does yourself. You may not know their name or even have direct communication with them right now, but that doesn't stop them from being there anyway and influencing our inner and outer self. It doesn't mean you won't go through really rough and terrible things in your life. Some are needed to push and move us forward and grow. Some are just because we live in a world with a bunch of other autonomous souls doing their own things that happen to affect us. Through this 3-part series, we have covered DNA and ancestry, the evolution of gods and religion, and now the soul. So the question you might be asking now, what do I do with all this? How can I use this information for myself? I suppose it really depends on what you want. By learning about where we come from, not just our recent roots, but our deep roots, it allows us to discover things about ourselves now in the present. What shapes us, influences us beyond just the surface, what we carry within ourselves and can access within ourselves. By actively seeking and connecting with those who are in our ancestral soul, we gain knowledge, wisdom, even skills to achieve the goals and desires we have in this life, to accelerate our growth and move forward. By identifying, connecting, and working with our primary guide, we gain purpose and understanding of that purpose. I started with just connecting and having conversations through tarot. As I said many times before, I really enjoy tarot for this task because it gives a physical tool to help us focus and hear them, not just what we or our conscious mind want to hear, so it doesn't twist things as much. I say as much because you still need to be careful. It takes practice and trusting the messages in your intuition. It requires complete honesty of the self, especially when dealing with taking responsibility for the role we play in a situation, and honesty about our motives and desires. That led me to trance work, which allowed me to connect on a whole other level, hearing them and direct communication. When I started this, I used the tarot to verify what I was getting in spoken messages and visions because I really like checks. The payoff, though, is amazing. To connect not just with the spirit of an ancestor, but one who is a part of you. To be able to access their memories, their experiences, hear their stories is amazing, and it's life-changing. To have them as guides with all their wealth of experience over many lives is incredibly helpful in moving through this one. To know you have this whole team directly connected to you and rooting for you because you, right now, are their legacy, as one day another was going to be yours. I have learned a great deal from both my ancestors and the Morrigan. I learned about myself, about different kinds of magic, about how energy, the seen and the unseen work together. I have learned about them, the past, and how it has shaped our world now. I have a lot more to learn and understand. I realize even though I've been doing this a while, there's still so much depth I haven't even touched yet. But that is the wonderful thing about an adventure. It's not about the ending. It's about all the steps in between. The series wasn't to tell you what to do. It was to get you to see other perspectives, other possibilities, and things to experiment with. These are my truths based on my own experiences and knowledge gain. I'm not alone in these by any means. There are others I know, and most likely many I have never met, who have experienced these same things, who see these same perspectives and are using them to advance themselves. So the question isn't so much, what do I do with this? But more of, what am I going to do with this? What resonates with you and what doesn't? What experiences have you already had? What will you try to prove or disprove this? How will you connect to all that makes you who you are? How will you connect to this vast team behind you that really does have your best interest at heart? What will you do today to move you forward? Only you can answer these questions.